Welcome to the next episode of the GSD Golf Podcast. I'm your host, AT. This is season 3, episode 2. We are beyond excited about today's show. But before we get into today's show, I wanted to just take a minute and just say season 3 of Full Swing is out, and it is in full swing. I mean, what a show! What a great no spoilers for me. I gotta admit, I didn't get a chance to binge watch yet. I am only on the first episode, or watched the first episode. Got to see Scotty's path towards his second green jacket at the Masters. I know one of the future episodes, I think they're going to focus on the arrest. I can't wait to see what went on behind the scenes there. But super cool. In episode 1, we got to see Neil Shipley and his journey to becoming the low amateur scorer at the Masters at Augusta. Super cool that he got to play with Tiger on the last day. I can only imagine what was going through his mind as his childhood hero, an icon like Tiger Woods. He gets to tee off with him at the Masters at Augusta and play that round. The feelings, the emotions had to be surreal. And it was really cool to see the pro golfers, the PGA golfers, a couple of the live guys in front of the camera doing a little bit of acting with Adam Sandler as they prepped for Happy Gilmore 2. Can't wait to see that movie. Can't wait to check that out. But let's get down to it. Spring is right around the corner. We've been putting in a lot of work. Junior golfers, you've been putting in a lot of work this offseason. You've been working on your body. You've been physically training your body, working out, getting bigger, getting stronger, getting more explosive, working that core. You've been working on the mental game. I know you're working on the mental game because one of the key factors to lowering those scores is course management, is how do you mentally approach a golf course? How do you mentally approach a shot, making sure that you don't you minimize those blow up holes to lower your scores. And you've been in the simulator. You've been in the simulator grinding, hitting balls indoors. I know you all have that feeling. We all have that feeling. Even amateur golfers like myself, we want to get outside. We want to experience the outdoors. We want to get back on the course, feel the breeze, feel the fresh air. I know junior golfers, you've been in the simulator, like I said, practicing. You've probably been using your Rapsodo MLM2 Pro launch monitor indoor simulator. Oh, by the way, if you're watching right now, we posted a couple weeks ago that we're going to be giving away a free MLM2 Pro Rapsodo launch monitor that has 30,000 courses, simulated courses on it that you can play indoors. That monitor, if you go buy it at the store, it's going to cost you roughly around $700. We are going to be giving one away free later in today's show. So make sure you stay tuned, make sure you check us out. But let's get into season 3, episode 2 of the GSD Golf Podcast. Let's get down to business. Let's talk. Today's show, we're going to talk about name, image, and likeness, NIL. This is for the parents of junior golfers. This is for junior golfers. If you're not a golfer, this show is still for you. This is for our student athletes so that you know how to navigate the landscape of name, image, and likeness, the deals, how that impacts your eligibility as an amateur, or do you become a professional? When do you start trying to capitalize on that? How do you build your audience so that you're marketable and visible to these potential brands that want to partner with you? What goes into signing a deal? How do you make it happen? We are ready to talk all about that and to help us navigate this really important discussion. Again, it's not about if you're a junior golfer or you play football or you play lacrosse or you're a swimmer. This is for all student athletes that are growing their personal brand, that are looking to capitalize on that. This conversation is really important, and we encourage you to bring your parents into this conversation as well, to help us navigate this conversation around name, image, and likeness. We have none other than a sports attorney with more than a decade of experience, Lachauna Edwards. Lachauna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here to talk about all things NIL.
We're super excited to have you. As we talked about before, this is an exciting time. I feel like I show my age when I think about NIL, and I want to get into what it is, but I feel like I go back to it feels like the 90s and me watching college basketball and Ed O'Bannon and everything that went down with him and his family. But talk to us about first, before we get into that, tell us about your background. How did you get into this world?
Yeah, so I've been an attorney for 12 years now. I have a background in a variety. I have a background in education, civil rights, business, and sports. And I would say I've always been very passionate about this issue. I've always felt that it was an injustice that athletes were not able to monetize from their name like simply because they played sports. I've always felt very strongly. And in fact, before all this really went down in 2021 when it became law, there was a case with Ohio State. Well, first of all, I'm from Ohio, so we need to put that on the map. I am a Buckeye.
Fair enough. Are you a Cleveland Browns fan, or are you just going to Buckeye? The Ohio State.
Yeah. Buckeye. I was born in Canton, Ohio, so my dad is a Cleveland Browns fan. We moved to Cincinnati when I was in the 5th grade, so I don't feel tied to any Ohio NFL team. I am a Falcons fan because I've always loved Atlanta, and I've been in Atlanta for over 20-something years now. However, I'm a Buckeye fan.
I like it. Fair enough. So you were saying the Buckeyes.
But nevertheless, I think it was like 2013 or somewhere around there, some of their players had got in trouble for getting tattooed simply for selling their own gear and things that they had won from the bowl games, items that they owned, which then caused Jim Tressel, which is the head coach, to be asked to resign. And it was a whole big old scandal because the NCAA somehow felt that they owned these players. And it was just one of the cases that I was always just like, this isn't right. What do you mean you can make millions and billions off of my name and my talent, and I can't even get a piece of pizza in exchange for an autograph? So I've always felt
so many times. And so many times you walk through the college campuses, you walk through the games, whether with the paraphernalia, the apparel they're selling at the games, they got the numbers. You know who that jersey is. You know who that jersey is. So you're passionate about that, and it drives you to the end. Talk to us about what does it mean, name, image, and likeness, and how does that in today's environment?
Yeah, so NIL, like you just said, stands for name, image, and likeness. It essentially is the right for an athlete to monetize from their name, image, and likeness. And prior to 2021, that was not something that athletes could do. So it kind of is looped into what's called the right of publicity law, which is what we all have as citizens, which is the right to own our name, image, and likeness, right? And so prior to Ed O'Bannon case and there was a multitude of cases that came against the NCAA for years now, because this is essentially a violation, right? Like no other industry says, I'm going to make money off of you, but you're not allowed to. So after a series of lawsuits, that's where we came to 2021, where finally the Supreme Court said, and in fact, Justice Kavanaugh said, NCAA, you're not above the law. Like you're the only industry that does it. At that point,
NCAA is not above the law. I like that.
Right. So at that point, they said, NCAA, you have to allow these athletes to have an opportunity to monetize. Now, what some people kind of get mixed up is they didn't necessarily say that the athletes can now be paid for playing the sport like NFL, MLB, golf, all of that. What they said is you have to allow them an opportunity to monetize in those outside sources. So the sponsorships, the entrepreneurship ideas that they have, you cannot take those off the table, but you cannot pay them to still play the sport, though. At least, right.
It makes life a little bit easier, I think, for those college athletes. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get to what it takes to get to that. But you write about the 4 steps of managing. I think I wrote it down. 4 steps of winning the NIL. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So first of all, what many people don't kind of really understand is that a big part of it is having a personal brand or an influence of social media, some type of influence over people, which is how you get those sponsorship deals. Now, that very first step needs to be you all kind of identifying how are you going to show up online? How are you going to show parts of your personality that are going to link with an opportunity of some sort? So many of the athletes, if you notice, many of the athletes who are winning big with NIL, they're not just personalities based on their sport. Like, of course, their sport brings them a level of fame, but they've done something that makes them stand out more. And so that very first step has to be kind of identifying what is this sort of personal brand that we are building around here. And so then once you kind of identify how you're wanting to show up on social media, how you want to show in the public, you do also need to understand NIL in its essence, right? So making sure you understand the laws and the policies that your athlete needs to follow. So that means that you may need to go read in institutions, or for those who have younger athletes, even in high school, the high school associations or the different districts and counties have policies around how NIL needs to be followed now. You also need to
I don't mean to cut you off. So what you're saying is that that policy it could be different from county to county within one single state. So it's not a universal policy nationwide.
This is correct. That is correct. And it may not necessarily be, so not to really make people afraid, like, oh gosh, I don't even want to deal with this. There's too many things. But it's more so like them kind of having rules around how to be in compliance. So it may say you need to submit, if you're going to do NIL, you get a deal, make sure you send over or alert your athletic director or alert your principal. One of the schools I've helped the athlete with, I think they had to let their athletic director at their school know. And then others may say you need to let the principal know, who will then connect to the district athletic director. But there are just kind of policy processing type of rules. Then you also do have where the states may say, and then the school districts will generally kind of coincide and say, like, you can't do alcohol or you can't do gambling or, certain types of opportunities that they're not allowed to engage in. But it doesn't really get too specific at that, at least the things that I've seen. It's not something to be afraid to do because you're worried about what type of rules. A lot of the districts and things are more so saying this is the process you need to follow if you're going to be in compliance, which is just kind of letting them know about the deal.
It's amazing. And we're talking earlier about, our show, we traditionally focus on junior golfers and parents of junior golfers, but this is bigger than just golf. This is, when you think about our student athletes, whether they're in junior high or high school or just making it into college, you talked about, making themselves marketable for a brand to land that deal. How early in this process should parents, and I love that you call it the momagers, because I think that the moms drive everything. Like, let's be real. I wouldn't be sitting here if mom wasn't okay with us doing this and talking about the junior and all that stuff. And the moms drive everything. So shout out to all the moms. But how early is too early to start that social presence, that social branding that they grow into when they get to high school and college?
So my personal opinion as a mom is that there's never too early. It's what your family feels comfortable with. So for an example of that, is my son is going to middle school this fall, and we already have a social media page built for him. He plays football and baseball, and me and my husband post for him. He does not have access to that page. He does have creative input. So, this song, does this corny, that kind of stuff. But we've already started kind of building that brand for him. Now, I'm going to be honest, we're not as strategic right now because he's just been in youth sports, but come fall and we're entering middle school and we're starting to build out that brand that can take him into those high school deals and things. We are going to be more strategic. So with that said, if you feel like, what, my 5-year-old is charismatic, there are influencer kids, YouTuber kids. If you feel comfortable as a parent saying, hey, they're interested in doing this, I'm fine with, sharing parts and bits of our life. Now, what also needs to be taken into account when determining that time frame, and what I tell families is, you are better off having built a brand, and then when you enter the NIL space, just capitalizing on it, versus trying to build that following, build that brand awareness, build that influence while the clock is ticking on the NIL opportunities. So better to already have built a brand, so when you enter the space, we're ready. We've already shown people are interested
Yep.
with, the
Yep.
brands are ready, versus saying, all right, I got 500 followers. I'm trying to get to 10K, and not that you have that, but don't try to beat the clock at the same time.
And I would think that some brands may look at the built-in audience that you bring ahead of time as a benefit.
Exactly. That's the goal, is to be more proactive. So I like to say, if you are saying, hey, I don't want to do it when they're really young, if we want to be strategic, I would say middle school, just start to kind of, and that's obviously if you feel comfortable in your family, if your athlete feels comfortable. I feel like Gen Alpha they know social media, like they watch YouTube or regular TV, so I don't see them being as adverse to it. Gen Z they're having to mold a little bit with this idea of like, wait, I'm a brand and I don't want to post, for some of them, even though they're on, but Gen Alpha, I think they're going to be much easier and already having pages and stuff by the time that they're up for it.
We have a Gen Alpha in the house as well, and it's funny because we talk about music, and he's more likely to say, "Oh, I know this YouTube star than a certain genre of music." So it's really fast. That connection is spot on. Before we go any further, Lachauna Edwards, sports attorney, with us. How can people? Have such a wealth of knowledge and experience to share. If people at home are listening, watching, and they want to get some help from you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so on all social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, I even have YouTube, which I'm going to be more strategic about in 2025, but it's at Lachauna Edwards, Lachauna Edwards. And within several of those sites, I have links to resources. I send out a monthly email newsletter to parents. It's specifically for parents to learn about NIL and how to support your child. And there's some other resources that I offer in my different pages as well too. And then they can email, set up a strategy call. If you need help.
I love that.
Yeah. I get so many parents that are just like, I'm overwhelmed. Like, this all is happening so fast. Can you just help make all of this, help this all make sense for me? And then we kind of go from there. Okay, well, maybe you need assistance with contracts as well, or maybe you want to trademark something, but let's just start with helping you understand where you are at and what to do next.
And are you teaching a class? I think I saw you're teaching a class called Sideline, or you have a program, Sideline CEO?
Yes, I do. So it's a 4-week program. I've been doing it the past year now, and through a grant funded by PNC through Clark Atlanta University, which is my alma mater. However, we just wrapped up 2 weeks ago, and because it's grant funded, I got to debrief and I got to figure out all of the next logistics in terms of like when it may be coming up next, or if there's adjustments that need to be made. But I do teach a 4-week program called Sideline CEO, where we break down literally NIL compliance. How do you build that brand? Then how are we pitching and making money from this brand? So we talk about different ways to monetize the brand, as well as pitching for brand partnerships. And then in that last week, we go through contracts and understanding intellectual property, things that you need to protect the brand, essentially, in that last session.
I love it. You have so much to offer. And I think about, this conversation that we're having. We talked about building the brand. We talked about growing your online presence, essentially making you more visible and marketable, right, to these brands. Mm-hmm. Two questions. One is landing that deal in early or junior high or in high school. Is that something that some of the student athletes can continue on as they go into college, or do you tend to see it transition based on the kid's trajectory, the student athlete's trajectory? So I make sure I understand you're asking if the deals kind of follow them as they progress through. Exactly. So here's the yes and no. So technically, at each level, they say that there needs to be like, this is for your high school period, and this is for your college, and it's not supposed to go beyond that. However, I've seen a deal where it's crafty, where it's saying it's going to end at
date when he graduates from high school. And should he want to renew, then he can do it at that time. So it's essentially, it's beneficial for him to renew. So he's more than likely going to renew. But there are crafty ways that they're doing the contracts where, yes, you sign it up until the end of that, particular period in their life. And then it may be optional to renew to go into that next level with them, whether that's the college or the club.
Gotcha. So before I want to get into the high school years and into the college, because I think that's where I'm seeing a lot of the conversation as I talk to parents. But I also want to talk a little bit more about building that brand, and we talked about Gen Alpha and the different generations, how they respond to that. Have you had experiences where maybe the parent wants it more than the child wants the presence, and how have you coached? I'm going to say coached through that, or have you seen it just in your own life, or maybe some of the student athletes that your children play with?
Yeah, so this is why I was saying earlier, Gen Z has this sort of, some of them, I'm gonna say the collective, I hate troping comments anyway, but some of them have been told, I don't know if it's by their peers, but that like posting isn't cool. Even though they're on social media, even though they're posting in their stories, they feel like if I put it on my feed, it's not cool. And so a lot of parents across the country, not one region, across sports, are feeling frustrated because they're like, hey, you need to post, you need to build your brand, and hey, I have some ideas. And the athlete is like, you don't know what you're talking about, that whole teenage thing.
Yeah.
I try to have the conversation with parents around. So, if your child is just someone who's just like doesn't want to be on social media, I say don't force it. Don't force it. Yeah. But if you do know that your child wants to be on social media and it's just that they feel that it's not cool, maybe they're reposting stuff on their stories or they're showing up in stories, but it's just like that sort of feed thing, then I tell them you may have to kind of make an executive decision as the parent to say, listen, I'm not going to let you squander this opportunity because it's not cool. Because I think of NIL from a business perspective. So even if your athlete doesn't go earn thousands and millions, like some of the athletes that we're talking, you have an opportunity to build business skills. If they're learning how to, get on conversations, hop on calls with companies and brands and build these relationships. And if it's entrepreneurship ideas that they're creating, those are skills that they learn through the process, but
for the rest of their life.
Yeah. And then for some athletes, they're never going to get a chance to like do an internship and things like that because they don't have the time. So if you're thinking of this in that regard, you're going to probably say, you know what, I'm not going to let you squander this opportunity. And we're not going to be 5 years after you're finished. And you're like, Mom, why didn't you? No. Why didn't you? So I may have to make an executive decision. Maybe we have to hire a social media manager. Maybe it's I'm going to post for you, or we find somebody, or are we going to come up with a consistent schedule to start to really build something here that's going to benefit you. So in that regard, I do have parents, a lot of them that are like, I want them to post, and the athlete is like, I post when I want to, and it's kind of
we're going through that same thing at the house. We have where he our golfer, he's 15, he's going through that phase. I can tell he's like almost like it's work that he has to post. So me being me, I'll get the B-roll, the footage, whatever it may be, I'll craft it and say, you got to post it. And then, looking at the clock, and I'm like 2 days later, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And so eventually we get up to it, but it's a good point. I think there's got to be a rhythm to it that works for the family, right? To make sure that they're not burning out the student athlete, but also giving them the opportunity that we don't want them to miss out on.
Exactly.
So we got branding, we got visibility, we got some potential deals on the table for these high school student athletes. What should student athletes from a legal perspective be looking out for as they make this journey?
So I am big on, as you said in the beginning, athlete rights. So I'm huge on owning your brand, which means understanding how a brand or the NIL collective wants to use your athlete's brand, and making sure that you're retaining as much ownership as possible. So for an example of that, in some of these contracts, they have things that are called perpetuity clauses, which basically says that whatever your athlete creates, the company or the collective in some of these owns it and can do whatever what they want with it forever. And let's say you have this great golfer who is, a decade and now, 5 years from now is, very popular. And this brand that you guys worked with for $500 is now pulling it out for TV commercials, billboards. You've given them that right to that when you signed that contract. So you need to be mindful that this is an industry that may be a little more advanced in understanding all of it than you, and they know the value of potentially having in perpetuity your content that you're creating. You want to make sure that if you all have any sort of creative arts type things connected to your athlete's brand, whether that be logos, brand names, you have slogans or things that they're saying, because there are people who just make things popular on social media now. People are repeating, whether it's a dance, if it's a symbol, or whatever, copyright or trademark, whatever is applicable for your athletes, so that they can then, for example, if you have somebody who wants to use it in their commercial, now you have an opportunity to get paid for them using that phrase, them using, your logo or your image, whatever. But the biggest thing is to understand the value that your athlete is bringing to this industry. The brands need influencers and need athlete influencers to promote their product. So don't just go into these conversations just happy to be chosen. This is business transaction. So how does it work for you? And how does it work for us? And then approach it from that sort of mindset. And then you're trying to make sure that it aligns with our long-term goals.
And Lachauna, one of the things that I think about when you say that is the cost to secure legal support for that, right? I think a lot of times families like, it's just easier. It's just, to your point earlier, it's just $500. I'll just sign this deal. And they don't think about, or we don't think about, the long-term ramifications. In that, with that in mind, is it better to pause and seek that legal counsel than to just take the grab for the money immediately?
It always is. I get it. I'm look, sometimes I say I don't like attorneys, so I get it. I get it. It feels daunting. It feels like, oh, this is when we're thinking about it from a business perspective. Now, if you're just approaching this as just a hobby and it's not important to you, then you probably will run with that mindset. But if we're thinking about this is a business, my child, and what I actually say is your athlete is the brand and the brand is the business. So if you're thinking about it from the perspective of we want to operate in excellence as business owners, and this is my athlete, their brand and the value, then you want to protect that. Those industries, those corporations, they know this industry. They know the value of.
They do it every day, right?
Exactly, and not to throw, Nike under the bus or Kawhi Leonard, but there was a big case where Kawhi Leonard, the basketball player Kawhi Leonard, for those who don't know, he had a logo that he designed before he ever signed with Nike. I'm pretty sure it was before he signed with Nike. He had drew something in the shape of a hand, and it was like his.
I think it was. Yeah, I was going to say. I think it was his hand. Yep.
KL. He then went on to work with Nike. They finessed the logo up a little bit, but because he created it before working with them, he thought that was something he owned. And when he signed that deal with Nike, they retained ownership of that. He tried to sue them to say, hey, that's my logo. When he wanted to go work with another corporation, they were like, no, you signed your rights away to Nike. So, that may or may not have been his fault in that regard, but had he known, I need to make sure that anything I'm signing, I'm owning. I am the brand. I am the business. It's worth me taking the moment to say, or worth you as the parent taking the moment to say, I don't know what can come of this, but I want to make sure that whatever does, we benefit from it. So that's my perspective. And, there's different tiers of working with different attorneys to determine what you need. But that's why I always offer my strategy calls first, so that you can even just get an idea of what you need for your athlete, what you may need to create a roadmap on. So, and that's, it does cost to have that call, but it's, very, very, not as expensive as going straight to the trademark process or going straight to the contract review. So to at least get the knowledge first.
And I would have to say that the peace of mind going into that, before you put your pen to paper with that signature, that peace of mind that you sought legal counsel, this makes sense. You're protected, your brand is protected, your student athlete is protected, is probably worth the investment. I would have to assume.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about, so we're talking about investments, we're talking about the benefits of NIL from a financial perspective, tax implications.
Yeah, so
I think a lot of people might not think about that, right?
So I'm not a tax attorney, so I'm gonna be very gentle with it. But
you stayed at a Holiday Inn at some point, right?
Yeah. People are missing the part where these are tax-free checks. And therefore, you need, from what I'm hearing from tax professionals, to be thinking we're putting 20 to 30% of this aside. Because if your athlete is signing a deal and you wait until April of next year to decide, now we need to set money aside for taxes, now you're looking at potentially thousands of dollars. And there are very successful athletes who were engaging in NIL in the beginning who learned on the back end that they failed to prepare for that. And what is happening for some of them, they're handing out money, they're spending money, and hey, I need help here. And then by the time the tax bill comes around, you're not getting that next check, or that next check hasn't come to actually pay the bill, or it's so big that you are basically eating up the next couple checks that you were going to get from your collective or partnership. So you definitely need to want to put like 20 to 30% of that to the side in preparation for the IRS to come for you.
And let's talk about that. You just dropped two words that subtly people might not pick up on, but you talked about the partnership with a collective. Talk about the differences, because I hear some colleges and universities talking about the NIL collective and how they use that to recruit student athletes. Yeah,
so the NIL collectives are, for right now, and I'll explain why I keep saying right now, a separate entity from the universities, and they're somewhat like your booster clubs or whatever sort of alumni club. So basically it comprises of either alumni, local businesses. Sometimes it's fan funded through people who are fans of the team, and they put money in a pool. And then what the collective does is they use that money to then go out and, what I will say truthfully is for legal purposes, let's say.
Hey, we keep things real here on the conversation.
Yeah, we keep it real here. Coerce the athlete to come play for the team with that check. So the bigger the school, the bigger the pot, right? The more successful the program, the more successful the pot. So then they can pay out that athlete that wants six figures. So, I have not seen specifically seven figures that's only coming from the collective, but six figures is very common for the athlete to come and play ball at their different schools. Now, why I keep saying right now is because this summer it is expected for them to go in-house, and that's when we're moving into that revenue sharing model. In April, the courts are supposed to officially rule if the resolution or the agreement that the NCAA has created is allowed to be passed, which then this summer, the collectives are expecting their departments to move in-house at the school, and then they will no longer be a separate entity. And then the schools are going to be sharing the revenue that they earn directly with the athletes. But for right now, and I say that still because we don't technically know if the judge is going to approve in April, but they are prepping. Right now, it's this separate group of people, separate business that has been created to funnel money to your athlete to get them to come play ball at your school. At their school.
It's such a different world. And we're on Lachauna Edwards, sports attorney, I'm going to say all things NIL. I feel like she knows it all, but we're here on the GSD Golf Podcast, and I know we mostly focus on our junior golfers, but this is such a wide-ranging topic for all student athletes. We feel like that Lachauna was the one that we had to have on, had to discuss this. In the past, there was always this fear, and you talked a little bit about the Ohio State controversy many years ago. Yeah, scandal. Or I'm going to go back to Florida State and Free Shoes University when they were giving out free shoes back in the day. But the maintaining your amateur status was always a big deal. Do these NIL deals jeopardize that, or is it just a different world now and you're everybody's considered a professional at that point?
So right now, no. It is still amateur status because the deals are not supposed to be tied to their performance on the field. And so that's kind of, or the court, wherever your athlete plays. It's supposed to be their outside sort of influence. And that's why even with the collectives, that's why they were trying to circumvent the process. So like their contracts are not saying you're going to come play ball at our school. They're saying like, you're going to post on social media, you're going to repost, you're going to go to some appearances, you're going to sign some autographs and things like that. So it's separate still from them actually playing the sport. So as long as the contract is saying it in that way, then no, it's not jeopardizing amateur status. Now, there are some, scandalous contracts out there that are kind of messing with that, with like advancement funds and different shady things that are happening.
Achievements on the field, you generate probably a few more $1,000 here or there.
Yeah, there's even some that are saying like it's tied to future NFL earnings and things like that. Like it's not a regulated space, so you have to be very careful that no one's having you sign a contract that is literally tied to how they perform on the field or on the court or whatever, because that could jeopardize. But for the most part, it is supposed to be tied to their outside, works, whether it's social media, showing up to an event, showing up, to sign autographs or whatever. It's supposed to not be connected to their performance on the field.
And so when we talk about these deals and we talk about the field, but it is the court and it is the pool, I'm assuming, and it is the golf course, and it is every sport is open to an NIL opportunity. Is that every student athlete? Does that sound accurate?
That is very accurate. I'm glad you said that, because while football is one of the bigger ones, right? And that's also just because we're in America and football is king here, right? But again, if we go back to, okay, you've built this personal brand, you have this influence, that is where the brands are going to want to pay you. They want to access your audience. That's really what the companies are trying to do. They want to access the audience that you have because they're trying to sell a product or a service and they need your people to buy it. So if you do a good job of building up a personal brand, it won't matter what sport you play. And one example of that is, I'm pretty sure her name is Haley. I'm about to mess it up. Is it Haley? It may not be Haley. She's a gymnast.
The basketball players? No, not the basketball players?
I guess the Cavender twins. That's why I'm thinking I may not be.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what
I may be messing it up. But there's a gymnast. I'm her name to the age is missing me right now. But she's a gymnast. And truthfully, she's not one of the best gymnasts, but she built a great social media following. So she's been capitalizing big off of that. And so there are other athletes that have done a great job of just building a great personal brand. And so when you connect it to their sport, and we know that there's this interest in NIL right now, then you create those opportunities where it's not just because I play football or just because whatever. It's I am influential.
Yeah. What do we talked about building the brand and the parents and motivating the kids to want to post and all the things. What are the risks? What are the risks that families should be aware of? I'm going to say high school at any phase of this. Obviously we talked about the contract and making sure you sign the contract, but what else should families that are entertaining or considering or being approached with these types of deals be concerned about?
So let's first start with kind of just social media and kids and, all that comes with, you do have to be, hands-on if you're going to let even your teenager be on social media, because there are a lot of unscrupulous things going on. And what you were saying, I believe we were off camera then, about making sure that if I click on your page, it's very, as I say, family friendly, And
you want grandma to be able to look at it and not think twice about what she's looking at.
Exactly. So number one, we want to create family friendly brands, but also if not just what is actually being posted on social media by your athlete, but we don't want them recording or being recorded doing anything, because in some of these contracts, you do have things like morality clauses. And some of those clauses will say, if something comes out that you did years before, like you're not that person anymore, but you did that. And now somebody's posting it, it can cost you that current opportunity. So you want to be mindful of what we're recording, how we're showing up online. But then you also have that issue of things like they're now subjected to hateful comments and, all the people that like to spew negativity on their pages. But one of the cool things about like Instagram, and I believe TikTok as well too, is you can do things to limit comments. You can even create words that you don't want people to be able to use in comments. So if they're using this word, it automatically blocks it out of the comment section. You can create, there's a lot of different things. And I believe they even have a teen version of Instagram right now, so that you can monitor and have, keep them safe in this space, because it is still our job as parents to make sure that they're safe in using these different.
You have to protect them. And I think you said it earlier. I think that's part of being, I come back to the momager, but also parents being involved and knowing, right, what your kids are trying to leverage social media for, because it will have a cause and effect as they move forward in their career path, as they move forward in their educational endeavors. And so that is, you're right. That is really, really important. Lachauna Edwards, sports attorney. Lachauna, you're doing so much great work. How can people find you if they want have questions? How can people find you if they want to get involved with some of the courses you're offering?
Yeah, so at Lachauna Edwards on all social media platforms. I'm most active on Instagram, but I am on TikTok. I have a YouTube, I have a Facebook, and on all of those platforms, I'm pretty sure I have links where you can send me a DM. I respond to pretty much all of my DMs, even if I don't get to it right away. I respond to all DMs. It is me, and I'll let people know if this is what you're looking for, this service. You want, hey, you may want to join my newsletter. So, hey, here's a link to that. Or maybe you need to book a strategy call. Maybe you want more information about a trademark or whatever. I, let them know that information. But I am active on all social media platforms. So that's the best place to reach out to me first. And then if you want to have that phone call or that email, we can move from there.
I love it. I think listeners, if you have questions about the NIL deal, look her up. She has all, I'm going to say you have all the answers, because you're just flying by any questions I'm throwing at you, you have here. Before we let you go, we really appreciate your time. Before we let you go, final pieces of advice you would give to families as they move towards this new world order with NIL on the landscape for, as young as junior high and high school and college athletes. What pieces of advice, that one piece of advice they should consider?
So I use the phrase when I'm talking, especially to my momagers, that there is no one more invested in your child's success or well-being than you. Therefore, you all need to approach this industry as a team. You need to have your child's mindset that they do not sign anything. They do not have any conversations. I don't care if they're 20. They are still learning. You are the more wiser adult in this equation. They need to say, I'm going back to my team before I engage in any opportunities. Because when they get to that next level, or, even some of them are getting DMs in like high school and younger, the older they get, the less likely they are to want to reach out to you if you have not already created that team environment. And it is your job, again, because there's nobody more invested, not just in their success, but their well-being than you as a parent. And so you want to approach this with your child understanding that we work together. And when you do that, you are creating a better outcome for them, in my opinion. You are making informed decisions. You guys are possibly hiring the professionals if you need them. You're researching. You're not just signing anything, because you are pausing to actually make sure this makes sense for my child. And there are going to be a lot of people that are trying to rush and push you all into this space prematurely or just before you've had an opportunity. And so already adapting and saying, we pause and we discuss this as a team, and then we make decisions, is going to always be in your best interest.
I love that. I love that line. I wrote it down while you were talking. I'm going back to my team. And what it made me think of is, it may feel uncomfortable, to your point, if somebody reaches out to them and says, here's a deal, we want you to sign this deal. They may be like, afraid to say, I want to go talk to my mom. Right. But if they say, I want to go back and talk to my team, all of a sudden they immediately sound more professional.
Right.
And the person they're engaging with might, they got a team. It may put the person on the defensive. So I love that line. I love that strategy. I think it gives them a little bit more power. Of course, nobody's going to argue with mom, but still it gives the athlete a little bit more power. Lachauna Edwards, we appreciate your time on the GSD Golf Podcast. You've been a blessing to talk to. Before we let you go, though, we have a big raffle. We're going to raffle away a $700 golf package to one of our followers.
I need to win that. I just started golfing. I need to win that.
You just started golfing? Oh,
golfing.
We'll send you a care package for sure. All I need you to do is help me out. I need you to pick a number between 1 and 150. Just one number between 1 and 150. Any number that comes to mind.
Okay, I'm going with 10 because that's my son's jersey number.
10. All right, lucky number 10. We're going to look you up, find out who you were, and we're going to give you a $700 Rapsodo golf simulator package. And you can thank Lachauna Edwards for picking that number 10. Lachauna, thank you for joining the show this month. We're really excited that we got to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Lachauna Edwards, sports attorney, NIL professional. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on the GSD Golf Podcast. You drop so much knowledge on our audience. We're beyond thrilled to have you. You're welcome back anytime as things change and evolve in the landscape of name, image, and likeness. But thank you so much for your time, your expertise. I hope that our listeners got to take something away from it. Lachauna Edwards, NIL specialist, sports attorney. Thank you again for joining the GSD Golf Podcast. Now let's get down to our giveaway. I know if you stuck around this long, you're trying to find out who won the giveaway prize, who has won the MLM2 Pro Launch Monitor giveaway. We are excited to announce that. And you all heard Lachauna earlier. Lachauna picked the number 10. The number 10, we went down, we randomly put some names in a hat of those that engaged on the post. And our winner of the MLM2 Pro giveaway is Coulter Perry. Coulter Perry, we're going to be reaching out to you directly. We'll send you a direct message on Instagram. We'll make sure you get that prize pack. Congratulations. We hope you put the MLM2 Pro launch monitors to good use and work on that game, dial in that swing, and get ready to go here in 2025. With that, thank you, as always, for being proud partners of the GSD Golf Podcast. Let's continue to get shit done on the course together. Let's make sure that 2025 is the best season ever. Let's go.